We are live.
Hey everybody.
We are live.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, everyone.
It is a beautiful gray day here in the Bronx, and we are so happy to see you all.
And we are just inviting our...
This week I actually know the name of the show, so we're off to a better start than last time, so happy to see some people join
I'm
us.
good.
Episode 2.
Hey,
How are
Bill,
you guys?
how are you?
Hey, Bill.
Good.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thanks so much for joining. Of course. We're so happy to see you.
Yeah. I guess we'll wait like a second or a minute.
Give a couple people a minute to join.
Things are good. Getting a little busy.
Going,
How about you guys? Good.
Getting busy here as well.
Yeah, we have a nice quiet weekend because most of the buyers we've been working with have either accepted offers or contracts, and our listings all seem to have contracts, which is a great thing. So it's going to give us maybe a bit of a weekend off.
Good for you. Even your castle?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Even
great.
our little castle
That's
up
great.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that one over asked quite a bit.
That was great.
So
That's great.
that was,
yeah,
that
we've
was
got
a
our
good
first
one.
open house for that Mercer Street listing this weekend.
I know that looks...
It's really nice.
Yeah,
I'm doing 2 open houses on Saturday and Sunday. Like I'm doing the Stephanie Younger. You do open house?
well, that's good.
That's where you get people to come in and actually come and see the product, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's open houses, get them in the door. So it's
I don't understand.
so important.
I don't understand people who are still doing an open house by appointment unless you really need to because of the building.
I mean, it makes no sense because every time we did it,
Yeah.
people just came anyway without appointments. So it made no sense to do it. All right, let's get started.
Yeah.
So hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of the Relocation Rundown with Aaron and Geoff. We are so happy to welcome Bill Herbst, fellow Compass agent. He focuses on Greenwich Village and downtown Manhattan.
Thank you so much.
So welcome,
so
Bill.
nice. It's so nice to be here with you guys.
Yeah, this is so fun. So
one thing I think we were excited about having you on the show that makes it interesting with us is that you actually work with your husband as well down in your business. And, often we get asked frequently, what's it like working with your partner? And so I kind of wanted to start with the question we get all the time to you. What's it like working with your partner?
It's really good. I'm sure you guys have faced the same sort of challenges that we had. What's been kind of interesting is Ralph and I have been together for 40 years. So, yeah, we were very young when we met.
Wow.
And we sort of grew up together. And he was an attorney for a long time. And I've been working in real estate for about 19, almost 20 years. He's been working with me for about 10, 11 years. So, when he first started working with me, and he'd be like, well, what about this? I'd be like, no, and I realized, that's not how we do it. It was really a good exercise of sort of listening and taking in his perspective. And we have sort of a healthy back and forth and a give and take. He does not love to be on camera. He prefers to be sort of more behind the scenes and kind of dealing with clients one-on-one and helping with marketing. So, yeah. And as far as anything tech goes, that's what I do. But what's great about it is, we're on the same schedules. We don't let it necessarily bleed into our personal time, or at least not, we might be thinking about things separately, why isn't it selling, or why, or when are we going to hear from these people? But we don't let it kind of bleed in. So it's all in all, it's been good. The biggest challenge is, if we're traveling sometimes, and something happens and we have to get somebody to cover for us, but hopefully
we find that when we're traveling, we get more phone calls than when we're home. Yeah. And then it's both of us usually when we're traveling. So it's like all hands on deck when we get home. We have to get everything put in order. Well, let's talk a little bit about, your business. So we know it's in the Village. Tell us about, how you started there, how you started in the industry.
My background is in publishing. I originally worked for print publishers and then moved into the interactive space. And I had actually been laid off from my last job. I was sort of done with publish. I didn't want to be a publisher. And I thought, what am I going to do? And at the same time, we were living in a studio, a great little studio, at 101 West 12th Street. On the 18th floor, we had amazing views downtown and a great terrace, but we just needed more space. And we started looking with a friend who was an agent. And while we were doing it, I thought, I like this. Like, I could do this, and I think I could bring a lot to the table. You know, I just sort of felt, as I was seeing other agents and things, that there were certain things lacking. And, you know, I think a lot of people say, oh, you know, I love people and I love to look at nice houses, and there's that aspect. But because I come from a sales background, I also understood this part of it. And that's kind of really how it is. And I ended up working with, not with my friend, but, you know, I interviewed in a bunch of places and was hired at another agency, and then joined Compass about 7 years ago, which was amazing. But yeah.
7 years. You were.
No, so I joined
of
about 3
Compass.
years into Compass's life, and I thought I was late to the party. Like, oh, I missed so much. But I mean, we've just, obviously that's insane. But in a lot of ways, it's still the same. Like Robert Refkin, our CEO, was, you know, walking around with a cart yesterday around 4 o'clock with, you know, beers and hard ciders and things, like for agent appreciation, you know, handing it out. So we still we still have that kind of feeling, even though there are 30,000 plus of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
we should go to the office more often.
But it's been, you know, so because I've lived in
A little
Greenwich
far
for so
for us.
long, you know, it's natural that I kind of specialize here, but it's also just a neighborhood that I really love. So it's, and my office is just an 8-block walk from here. So I'm very blessed, you know, which isn't to say I don't work all over the city too, but most of my focus is here.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like we work all over the Bronx, but we live in Riverdale. So that's where we love doing the majority of our business, because we love living here. We're never going to leave. And it's just, it's nice to be able to walk to our listings, walk to our appointments. So we totally understand. But
The specialization, but ability to generalize, right? So speaking of, what is it that attracted you to this area of the city? You know, there's so many gorgeous parts of New York City. Why the Village?
Yeah, and what made you stay on
Over 30 years.
Been there.
You know, we were on the Upper West Side before. The time when we were living on the Upper West Side, it was, you know, it was a little, when we first moved, it was a little dicey. And it was sort of like Hell's Kitchen. It was very gay. That's like where a zillion gay bars were up there. And that was actually where we met, like at a bar. We said it to like the younger guys. So like, you know, how'd you meet at a bar? They're like, oh, that's so cool. It's so old school. Like, yeah.
We met the old-fashioned way as well.
In college.
So, you know, I have always been attracted to the sense of history. I'm a big fan of New York City history. I love reading, like the books of, like, you know, Edith Wharton and Henry James, and then like F. Scott Fitzgerald later. And I love that sense of New York history. And I love the fact that overall the scale here is very low. You know, you're not walking in canyons of towers. You have just like, you never know what you're going to find. You have these charming streets with brownstones and townhouses and these little sort of enclaves. Like, I have a Muse right over here. There's Washington Muse, and over here is McDougal Alley. So we have these muses that look like, you know, you're in London, you know, which are phenomenal. And actually, like in that muse, like I always show people, I can point to I'm totally blanking on his name. Studio, the painter. Oh my God, I just went to his. This is what happens when I'm on camera. Anyway, but you know, there's just, you walk around and you see plaques. Like in my building, which is 2 Fifth Avenue, past residents were Bella Abzug, who was Congresswoman from the Bronx, actually, very well known, like in the 60s and 70s, Ed Koch and Larry Kramer. And, you know, there are stories about, Ed Koch was in, there are 2 towers here. Ed Koch was in this tower, Larry Kramer was in the other tower. And like, Larry Kramer would like harangue Koch in the lobby, you know, especially during like the heady days of the AIDS crisis, and even to this day, like, supposedly like they had to call downstairs, but I used to see both of them before they passed. Oh, and Edie Windsor, lived here too. Edie and Thea, and then when Thea died, Edie's new wife. So there's a lot of gay history right in my building. But fun fact, so we have plaques at the front of our building for Ed Koch, Bella Abzug, and Edie Windsor. And around the corner is one for Larry Kramer on the sort of there's a red brick building portion of the building with a different entrance. And it's over there because Larry Kramer said, like, if I die, if I get a plaque, don't put me near his plaque. Like, we apparently like really told him, like, do not give me a plaque near his plaque. I don't want to be anywhere near it. So yeah, so I love stories like that.
There's a lot of New York City history that really attracts you and keeps you.
Yeah.
What do you think is different about the real estate process in this part of the city compared to other parts of the city?
Yeah,
it's
what's
really
the inventory like?
I looked, and in Greenwich Village proper right now, there are about just only 144 listings. No, I'm sorry, about 184 active listings, 344 active listings in Greenwich Village and the West Village. So, and I sort of consider this all to be kind of one area. So there's not that much, but a lot of people want to live here because they know it. When they were younger, they used to come here. They went to NYU, whatever. They know about the restaurants, the nightlife, the parks. We're by the rivers. But I think the kind of the most important things are most of the inventory down here are co-ops as opposed to condos. As you guys know, 60 to 70% of the inventory in the city now is still co-ops, and especially in kind of like the prime areas here, the more central areas, it's all co-ops. A lot of people these days want condos, but there just aren't that many of them. So you have to be prepared for that. The thing about co-ops is people go, I don't want a co-op, but they're not necessarily the worst thing. It's a pain in the ass to fill out the application often. I know, like,
cursing is fine.
Instagram doesn't take it down.
Dealing with the co-op application process is a bit of a pain in the butt, but a lot of condos these days are also requiring major applications, which I don't really understand because they really can't turn down a buyer. If they do, they have to buy the apartment themselves. So, but the positive is they're about 20% less expensive than condos. So you are getting more for your money, and you have people who are very involved in creating community. So it's not the worst thing. The other thing is, if you're looking here, you have to be prepared for the fact that a lot of the inventory is not new. You have a lot of wonderful old historic buildings that could have been built in the 1800s, or even later. You have a lot of kind of wonderful pre-war co-ops like 45th and 51 Fifth, and of course 1 Fifth, which were built like early 20th century, which have lots of wonderful pre-war detail and very imposing buildings. You do have some modern condos. They tend to be more expensive. Right now, there are 3 condos going up within a couple blocks. 2 of them are literally like one's there and one's there. And they're going to be expensive. So you have to be prepared for that if you're looking, if that's what you want.
Yeah. I think people forget really how old Greenwich Village is. And forget that it actually was just a village. In the 1600s, like that's how it got its name. And I think people forget that some of the oldest real estate in the entire city is right there in that neighborhood. So it's not all going to be shiny new developments like in like major Soho and stuff like that. Like it's not glass towers. It's really old buildings.
That's really
that are
true.
Beautiful.
That's really true. And you know, to your point, like Washington Square Park is like right over there. You know, and like yeah,
and
exactly.
Huge
It was a cemetery. It was like a marching ground, like for the army. Minetta Lane followed the path of the Minetta Stream, which was named after the Minetta Indians, and there was an African American settlement. Like literally, I'm pointing like over there. Yeah.
Yeah,
there's so much history, and then more current history. I'm sure a lot of people know about. People have heard about Jane Jacobs and her writings about cities. But she was an activist in Greenwich Village in the 1960s, and when Robert Moses, the developer who also worked for the city, did a lot of good things. Like Jones Beach, but a lot of awful things like the Cross Bronx Expressway, which devastated the neighborhood. Fifth Avenue ends at Washington Square. He wanted to literally like run a highway underneath the arch, and continue it on through there. And the neighborhood was so sort of up in arms about it. And Jane Jacobs really sort of was one of the people who rallied people. And it brought together all sorts of diverse groups who wanted to preserve the neighborhood. So you had, the African Americans and Italian Americans and Irish Americans and all these people that lived here who got together who were like, no, not happening. So there's that spirit of activism and living here at right at Washington Square. I mean, there's, it is still a place where activists gather. So for any kind of, social, like all the time, there's, sometimes there's stuff, and there's other stuff too. Like I remember, I don't know, was it when Hillary Clinton was running, and like, Madonna did like a free concert right outside there, like a free impromptu concert, and we were like,
cool. Right outside your doorstep.
I mean, it's frequent that when you see major news events and they're talking about New York City, the area that they like to show footage of is Washington.
It's instantly identifiable, and there's a lot of filming of new, movies and TV shows that happen there too, which is funny because I'll walk out the door and, sometimes it's the 1970s, it's the 1960s. It's like seriously, like there's this whole, they filmed.
Yeah. They filmed I Am Legend with Will Smith a bunch of years ago. And so it was like a post-apocalyptic thing. So they had all these burned out cars. That lasted for a while, like burned out cars and weeds and things growing all everything. And you could see people like, wow, they don't take care of this. It's all there. Wow.
Yeah.
70s again.
So I'm curious, like for you guys, do you get people, because it has gotten more expensive here, do you get buyers who are leaving this neighborhood, or who need to, who are looking at the Bronx because they want to get more room or outdoor space? Or
we actually do. We've recently gotten a few people from the East Village moving up.
Yeah.
They just can't afford anything down there, and they're really looking at Riverdale as one of the more affordable places for first-time home buyers. We frequently get written up in like the top 10 neighborhoods to focus on for first-time home buyers list. So we always have a steady stream of
first-time buyers.
Yeah, and like new folks moving to the neighborhood.
A lot of people have associations with the neighborhood from decades ago, from grandparents or cousins, or a lot of people we meet have been used to live in the area and remember it fondly and are coming back. Yeah. We also have people who are finding that Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, and Jersey are all unaffordable in comparison to Riverdale, so they're coming up to us.
Yeah, we get a lot of people looking for houses that they just cannot find
anywhere else in the city.
Yeah, in the other boroughs, except for Staten Island, maybe. But we're actually a little bit cheaper than Staten Island too. Which makes us
competitive.
Yeah, very competitive. And the single family home stock that we have here in Riverdale is just so beautiful that we really attract people from all over the city. especially now that everything's getting very expensive.
And rates going, well, they've been coming down, but they're higher than they were.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to people who are relocating from, other areas of the country maybe, and are focusing in on this part of the city?
That's a great question. My advice, I've worked with people like that before, or, I've also worked with, people's parents who are helping them, who come from other places to look. And I think you really have to, before you start looking online and get an idea of what your money will buy you, which I know people kind of tend to do, but really kind of focus on it, because there is a lot of sticker shock. When I literally I was working with a buyer who was looking at studios, and his parents came in and they were like, you can get a 5-bedroom house on the lake, in Arkansas where we live, for the prices. And I also remember the mother, I'm like, but you're in Arkansas.
Right. I don't want to live in Arkansas. So
the mother at one point said to me, like, as we've been touring things, she said, "Why do you keep mentioning the fact that there's a window in the bathroom?" And I said, this is so unusual. Like, you don't understand. The fact that every place we've seen has a windowed bathroom is huge. And I'm sure you guys have gotten it too, where you've had people who are like, well, yeah, I'd really like to have parking and this, and all this other stuff. Like, you don't want parking. You can park in my building. It'll cost you $600, $800 a month,
Yeah.
but, so you really kind of need to know what's there. And that's number one. And then number two is, like, really focus on how you really live. I think a lot of people reflexively, this kitchen's too small, this bedroom's, you don't really need a lot of the room you think you need, and you adapt. Kitchens are smaller, so that's one thing. The next thing is, because the fact you are probably going to be looking at co-ops, like, talk to an agent and get an idea of what the co-op process really entails. Yes, it entails a lot of paperwork. People have this idea, I think from a long time ago, that they're making sure you're the right kind of people or whatever. It's really about your finances, and even with, like, the co-op interview, people get very scared, and for the most part they're pretty casual affairs. They're like, welcome to the building, I see you, like, you enjoy this, we're so happy to have you, we need somebody on the the garden committee.
Because people often don't realize, like, once you get the board interview, like, they are pretty much approved you on paper. It's just to check that you're not like a crazy person moving into their building, or that you, like, have a personality that's not gonna, like, jive. And it's only if you're really off your rocker.
The only board trained I ever had after an interview was with somebody who, she was funny. She was an employment counselor, and said, when I tried to advise her about the interview process, she said, I talk to people about how to interview all the time, and it's not. So
it's not a job.
After the interview, I asked her how it went. She told me, she said, they asked me, like, is there anything about you that you'd like us to know that's not in this application? And she said, so I said to them as a joke, I was already like, she's like, at this point, I didn't think there was anything about me you didn't know. You guys are worse than the FBI. So, and this is sort of a pain in the butt kind of a co-op too, but and not a fancy one. It was not a fancy co-op, but she was turned down. But that's kind of the big things for me, is to really sort of understand what you're looking at, and to just understand you're probably going to be looking at a co-op. There are condo options, and if you can afford them and if they work for you, great. But the other thing that I would want for people to understand is just, it is a very central, very convenient neighborhood. There are so many options for things to do, and places to eat, and wonderful places to buy food. You have, like, old, Italian butcher shops, but you also have, like, the newest of the new down here. So, and it's a really diverse area. NYU is right here, so you've got lots of students, so that brings a lot of energy. it's a wonderful place to live, and it is very pretty. It's a very pretty place to live.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite restaurants?
There's a restaurant.
Old ones. Where do you go?
It's funny. I was talking about this with somebody. Anytime somebody asks me that, like our go-to is a place called Knickerbocker Bar and Grill, which opened. It was opened in 1972, and it's kind of like a traditional neighborhoody. It's big. They have like steaks and things like that, but it's this sort of a place you go in, and there's older people from the neighborhood, and maybe like people celebrating something after work, and some NYU kids with their parents, and Patricia Clarkson and Chris Noth, like people who live in the neighborhood. Sometimes you go there and you literally have like Academy Award winners, and and they're just being neighborhood people. And and they have like jazz. They'll sometimes have like pianists and jazz pianists and stuff. And Harry Connick Jr. used to work there when he was young.
Right.
He used to play the piano there. So that's kind of a go-to. I am also there are lots of great kind of bakeries and things. Like I post on social about. I have a real sweet tooth. Yeah.
I see them.
So there's lots of good stuff like that.
I see that.
That is Knickerbocker. I always say I'm going to change up what I get, but I always get the frisee salad, which has like big lardon and garlic cloves and cheese and stuff, and then St. Louis ribs, and fries and coleslaw. But you can get like steak and it's got a very varied menu. It feels like New York.
Very cool. Yeah. Are there some like local shops in the neighborhood that you frequent? Like anything
you want to shout out?
Yeah, fun, unique that's down there
that's a good
that
question.
You like? That you would like pop into to like grab something to bring over.
Yeah,
like
we have
like a dinner party.
Friends of ours have a shop called William Wayne and Company on University and 9th, which has great little gift items and things like that. So really like that. I'm trying to think what else. There's a men's clothing store in the West Village on Greenwich that I can't think of the name, but I don't actually go in. But the stuff is so nice because I'm afraid.
You just like that.
Another great place, and I know I'm not the person who discovered this at all, Carbone, which everybody knows about, but actually, my brother and his family were up, and my brother's a very successful restaurateur in Florida, and he could not get a reservation for him and his family. And somebody I used to work with used to be a server there, and blah blah blah. So I got us in. And you know what? It was worth it. It was really. It's expensive, but that was a great. It was a great evening, delicious food, a great occasion. But what I love about it is it's a 5-minute walk from here, through the park.
That's always good.
Yeah.
That is the benefit of living down there. I mean, like everything's so close together, and you might not have a lot of room, but you're right in the middle of literally everything.
Yeah.
And all the best restaurants and all the best stores and all the transportation. You could get to anywhere in the city in a matter of minutes. I kind of wish it was a little more like that here, that we had some kind of like faster train, or like
bring back the 9.
Bring back the train.
We were very much location people. We could have bought a larger place, not even that far from here, but I had always walked by this building and just thought it looked really cool. Like I do like kind of mid-century design. This is a white brick building that was built like 1950, 1951. So, white bricks can have a bad rap, but this one, because of when it was built, ceilings are higher. It's a sturdier kind of a building. It's got this driveway in the front, which if you've never lived with a building with a driveway in the front, it makes a huge difference. You're getting in from a trip, you got luggage, you got shopping. If somebody has mobility issues, getting in and out of cars, so that's really nice. But yeah, the fact that we've got subway lines all around us, major, the 8th Street stop. We've got, so it's a really convenient place to live and to get around.
That's great. Yeah.
Last question for you. If you were to sum the neighborhood up, we talked about it in depth so far for the last half hour. If you were to sum it up into its, best points in one sentence, how would you give the West Village?
I would say Village it's a beautiful, historic, and constantly evolving. And exciting, and that makes it exciting.
That's
Love
great. Before we let you go, remind everyone who you are again, where you're focusing your business, and if you have any cool listings right now on the market or coming up.
Okay, great.
And where they can follow
you.
And
So yes, I am Bill Herbst. I work with my husband, Ralph Gilmartin, at the Gilmartin Herbst team at Compass. You can reach me at bill@compass.com, which I know I'm like an OG with that, with that email address. And you can follow me on Instagram at Bill Herbst 3, numeral 3. And we have a brand new listing. We're doing 2 open houses this weekend, 303 Mercer Street, apartment A304. It's a really beautiful duplex, 2-bed, 2-bath, 2.5 million. And we're going to be showing it Saturday and Sunday from 12 o'clock to 1:30. Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect.
Well, any buyers out there, go check this one out. I'm sure it's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous.
Well, thank you guys.
Oh, good.
This was an absolute pleasure. And good luck to you guys. I got to send all my Bronx buyers to you. I'm going to push people. In fact, I have a couple that I'm working with. I got to, because we're not finding it in Brooklyn.
You're not gonna.
You can find it here.
You can find it here. Let's explore.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Bill. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.